Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for what I know is going to be a really insightful and practical discussion on a crucial yet sometimes underestimated area of our sector, which is food and beverage. Quite apt that we're coming after lunch to talk about food. As you said, I'm Seb Thompson, I lead on communications for Sodexo Live in the UK, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you all today. As said, the session is titled Maximising Value from Your Catering Operation, and today we'll explore how the right F&B strategy not only enhances the visitor experience, but also serves as a vital driver of revenue and reputation for cultural venues. Whether it's a cup of coffee that becomes part of a visitor's memory, or a dining experience that deepens a connection to the space, catering plays a powerful role. And crucially, when it's aligned with the venue's values and vision, it becomes more than a transaction, it becomes an extension of the storytelling. For those not familiar with Sodexo Live, we partner some of the world's most iconic sports, cultural and hospitality venues to deliver memorable experience for guests through food, service and events. And a snapshot of some of these clients can be seen on the slide here. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by our brilliant panel. All have got a wealth of experience. First of all, with my colleague, Sandy Robertson, who is Executive Director at Heritage Portfolio, which is part of Sodexo Live and delivers bespoke day visitor dining and luxury specialist events at a range of cultural destinations and prestigious venues. Next, we have Jo Prosser, Director of Audience and Experience at the Royal Academy of Arts, which is one of our clients. She leads an audience-facing experience and revenue, basically making the RA somewhere people want to visit, enjoy, feel at home, and return again and again. Last but by no means least, we've got Sandra Reed, Director at Fair Consulting. Sandra specialises in cultural destinations and visitor attractions, and she has a particular interest in food tourism and experiences, aligning venues with their local food story and supply chain. Together, we'll dive into the dynamics of partnerships, commercial performance, and creating visitor experiences that resonate. And we're really keen to hear from you today as well, so do put your hands up throughout if you've got any questions, and there's roving mics to come and speak to you. Before I hand over to Sandy, who'll do a bit more scene setting, here's a short video to give you more of a flavour of Sodexo Live.
Life can be extraordinary, unforgettable, amazing. Life is about the joy of being together. It's sharing every moment, indulging your passions, and making memories that stay with you forever. Life is live. The thrill of the game, the buzz of a network, the enrichment and fascination of a cultural soiree. And we feel every sensation because we're right there with you, always on, always fully engaged to help provide that extra spark, heighten emotions, and make every occasion simply unforgettable. Because the best live events don't just happen to us, they become a part of us, forever associating your brand with life itself. Live can be extraordinary. And we're ready to help you make the most of every inspired, delicious moment. Welcome to Sodexo Live.
Okay, hopefully you all can hear me okay. So as a partner of cultural venues across the UK, we very much recognise that our approach cannot be cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all, because our clients and the venues that we work in are not. In fact, I'd probably go as far as saying that in the cultural sector, there's no two venues that are the same. So a bespoke, tailored approach to food and beverage is what a catering partner should provide. Now, of course, that's not to say that everything must be unique. We live in a world where customers and visitors expect a certain standard and look for consistency. There are staples of any great cafe or restaurant menu that you would expect to see as a core. A great cup of coffee, a handmade scone, a beautifully baked brownie, or a freshly made salad. But when you look beyond that core range, what will make a venue stand out, rather than, of course, just the quality of the service, is the personalisation of the offer and its connection to the surroundings. As a white label operator, we align with the branding of our venues, so that it's their voice that stands out. But our approach to partnership goes beyond style, design, and tone of voice. Creating a food and beverage offering that aligns with our venue's visions and values means an experience for visitors that is seamlessly integrated and enhances their day while providing a reason to return again and again. Because that is the part that food and beverage should play. integral to the experience, designed for the audience and appropriate to that audience, and also generating a valuable return for the venue. So an example of the benefit of integration between venue and caterer can be seen in our partnership at V&A Dundee. V&A Dundee's mission is to celebrate Scottish design and bring the best of design from across the world to the city of Dundee for the region and the country to enjoy. This is a venue that's evolved since its opening in 2018, and as their partner, we've grown together. In 2022, we agreed a set of joint priorities together, and that has since delivered a redeveloped cafe restaurant where Scottish design is showcased throughout, a new gallery space that has allowed for the expansion of the year-round exhibition programme, an accessible, family-friendly menu that reflects the seasons and visitor demand and is inspired by and features items that are inspired by the exhibitions, a year-round outdoor offer that animates the museum plaza and has built a significant local following, a programme of ticketed events and experiences that draw new audiences, and a preferential at-cost pricing structure for local groups and partners, which has given those partners the opportunity to host events at the museum for over 1,200 guests and has supported the museum's reach into the community. So the success of this joint approach can be measured in the engagement of the visitors, with conversion in the cafe increasing from 28% in 2022 to 38% in 2024, and spend per visitor across the same period increasing by 27%. And at a time when cultural institutions are under severe funding pressure, the value this has brought to V&A Dundee can be measured in the 25% increase in commission per visitor that we've been able to return together. Now, this is a detailed example of how partnership can work, how the potential of a catering operation can be realised, and also how we like to work with our clients. And although, of course, I've got many more examples that I can share, it might be the sustainability, alignment and kitchen garden at the Botanics in Edinburgh, or the focus on service, welcome and hospitality that we're currently developing with the Royal Academy of Arts to support their long-term growth. But of course, the purpose of today's session is not just to hear from me, it's to hear from industry experts about their view on partnership and how you can maximise the value of your catering operation. So with that, I'll hand over to Seb for the Q&A.
Thank you, Sandy. So like I said before, we're really keen for any questions from the audience. Just put your hand up and we'll do those throughout. We're not going to wait to the end to do questions, but one we'll start off with first that we've got here is actually a question for all three of you. With your different kind of heads on and different nuances, I'm sure you'll answer it differently. So what would you say are the benefits of working with a catering partner? Sandy, maybe you want to start?
Obviously, I've got slightly rose-tinted spectacles when it comes to that topic, but I think a catering partner in any venue, in a cultural setting in particular, though, is there to focus. A catering partner in any venue is there to focus on catering and hospitality. And in a venue, obviously, you've got lots of different. It might be a different purpose. You've got a busy exhibitions program. You've got an education program, and so you need a specialist to focus on your catering, and that's the value that a partner can bring, because they're solely focused and they should be experts in catering. So therefore, it's important that they're the people that lead that side of the operation.
Thank you, Sandy. From my point of view, there's probably three main aspects that the caterer can bring, and that is around the expertise, which Sandy has mentioned. This is not your core business, but it is his core business. So they have that expertise, the culinary expertise, the financial expertise, the supply chain that they can bring to your operation. The second element is around a specialist offer and really concentrating on allowing you to concentrate on what you do well and to partner with you to match that and to excel. And the third is around financial expertise and being able to manage those difficult cost controls. But also caterers very often have capital that they are able to partner with you on. So those would be the three areas that I would look at.
Well, I suppose coming third, I would agree with all of those things. There's practical expertise. I think too often people think it's easier than it is. It's extremely difficult. So to have a partner who knows what they're talking about, liability, allergens, insurance, staffing, everything is great. I'd also say that I think the hospitality sector generally has a great deal to teach the museum and heritage industry. We still tend too often to talk about the visitor, the audience, as if they sort of should appreciate what we're doing. And hospitality, of course, talks about the guest. And I think the hospitality industry has really led the way in terms of looking after people. And I think from the real detail of catering expertise out to just what it is to look after people, I think we have a lot to learn from them.
Thank you. Follow-on question for you actually, Joe, while you've got the mic in your hand. We've been partners of yours for many years at different venues. What are the benefits, would you say, Heritage Portfolio Sodexo Live has brought to you in the venues you've worked at over the years?
I have worked with Heritage Portfolio and indeed Sandy in different shapes and forms, and I think it's their flexibility has been a big part of that. So I've worked at venues where, including V&A Dundee, where price was a real issue, and trying to make sure that things were affordable for a kind of local audience was very, very much part of what we were doing there. At the other end of the spectrum, we work now at the Royal Academy where visitor, audience, guest expectations are extremely high and extremely specific to the organisation. People want to feel like they belong there, they want to feel they're behind the scenes, they want to feel that they're part of a group with the artists. And I think what Heritage Portfolio and Sodexo can do is bring a sort of range of expertise. That might be menu planning, that might be staffing, but what I've really appreciated is that flexibility to do all those things well. I think sometimes, people often say, that the best sandwich, some of the best meals you can have are a really simple sandwich, or it can be tea at the Ritz, but it's about knowing who you are and delivering it, and they're great at that.
Thank you. Sandra, one for you next. Obviously, you work with a whole wide range of different venues and destinations. Are there ways for smaller heritage and cultural venues to engage with partners for commercial success?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Seb, and it's something that comes up in my day-to-day work quite a lot, because smaller venues are they have the same challenges as the larger venues in terms of how to define their catering offer. They're very often in-house operations. So would they look to contract out? Contracting out is going to be more difficult for a smaller operation. But what I would urge smaller operations to do is to look at the surrounding infrastructure of are there local guest chefs that you might work with on a pop-up restaurant basis? Are there local suppliers that you might look to specialise with? Somebody that could work in partnership with you to bring their experience to your business and to create these kind of specialist experiences that we've been hearing so much about today.
Thank you. Another one for all three of you if you want to take it. What do visitors look for in the venues you work with? And are there any emerging trends you're seeing coming through?
I think what do visitors look for? I think there's huge pressure on price at the moment. And I actually don't like to talk about price. I like to talk about value for money. And so I think that's a really important area for cultural attractions and for caterers to be looking at, is creating experiences and storytelling that add value to the proposition, so that the price and the value for money element is not so important. I think the other two trends that I would say are important in the industry just now are sustainability, and that's something that a caterer can really, really help you with, particularly a large caterer like Sodexo or some of the other larger caterers, because they have the systems in place to be able to support you to do that, particularly around waste management and carbon offsetting and so on. The third area that I see as a trend, which I I'm not an expert in, but is tech. So it's can you bring tech into your business to make your kitchen more efficient, to make your service offer more efficient? But maybe Sandy could say a bit more about tech.
Thank you, Sandra. I think from a tech perspective, I guess it has to be appropriate to the setting because I have seen a few instances, not in any of our venues necessarily, where sometimes tech is introduced to improve speed of service and make an operation more efficient, but you lose that human interaction. And customer service is such an important part of hospitality. And I think when it comes to value and what people are willing to pay for a service, I think that the value of the human interaction and the experience that you can create, if somebody has a great service experience and has a good meal, they're less likely to think about what it cost because they've had a great day out, they've had a great experience. And I think what I really encourage our teams to think about is that welcome, that hospitality, and that personal approach that we want to bring into our venues. So I think tech is a trend, but over tech is also a trend, and it's really important to stay away from maybe, because there's certain quick service environments that you see in, let's say a high street, a quick service restaurant, and and you see it and you think it can work, but it's not appropriate to the certain environments. So tech, where tech can support services, is important, but in a cultural setting, from a tech perspective particularly, it's actually using systems to improve your operation. So it might be how you onboard your staff, it might be how you communicate with your employees in terms of booking them in for shifts, it might be how you look at your menu planning and your management and your efficiencies that you can drive back a house. So the front of house service, which is all about the personality and all about the service, is still delivered by people, but the back of house operation and the administration and the efficiency, that can come from a tech or a software solution.
Thanks. Yes, I think the value for money questions, one we've been looking at in a lot of detail, not just in catering, but really what does represent value for money. And what we've noticed through quite a lot of research is that people complain about the price of something when it wasn't up to their expectations, when something can be cost considerably more, but it met their expectations. It's really interesting. So looking at that with something like ticketing, if we do a big, amazing show and that costs £30, people are much happier with that than, say, £20 for a smaller show and going, that wasn't value for money. And I think it's very closely linked with a trend that we're seeing around time, that people value their time quite rightly and they want to spend time with you. And so that value for money, whether that can be like a single glass of champagne or a cup of tea, I think it's making sure you look after them. And I think Sandy and I are both smiling about tech because we did look at things like, QR codes and things which are not for our guests. And actually what they want is somebody to be nice and to bring them tea in a china cup and to say please and thank you. And that's good service. And actually, I'm smiling, but we've done a lot of work, Sandy and the team have done a lot of work by deliberately focusing on that. And the spend has gone up, the net promoter score has gone up, it works. So I would say good service is a trend, but it's a trend that should stay.
Conscious we've been talking, is there any questions at all from the floor? We've got more on our list, but pause for a moment. Yeah, we'll get a mic to you.
Hi, I run an organisation, the Bishop's Palace in Wells in Somerset, and we have in-house catering, and it accounts for probably 50% of our revenue at around the £1 million mark of income. And so we do pretty well, and a lot of the things you're saying resonate deeply. Our biggest problem, because we're in sort of rural Somerset, is staff. It's front of house staff. We don't have many people in the city between 18 and 30, and no one wants to come and do it. Chefs is another problem. So I don't know if anyone has any advice on how to attract staff. We pay the real living wage for the front of house staff and a reasonable wage for the chefs, but time and again, if we get some people, they don't stay. It's a pleasant environment. They don't have to work in evenings. I don't know what else to do.
Sandy, do you want to take that one?
I just would say it's extremely difficult, but I'll leave that to Sandy.
given our spread of venues across the country, I'm sure you've got some solutions here.
Yeah, well, there isn't an easy answer, unfortunately, as I'm sure you're appreciating. I guess one of the things we look at, we're operating a lot of similar venues to you. It's a daytime operation. We obviously got evening events as well, but the core of our business is the daytime operation. So you would think, particularly with a chef, that would be attractive, but sometimes I think chefs want to work in that more high-pressured environment, so it is a challenge. But one of the ways we try to encourage employees to work with us is, yes, you pay a fair rate and you make sure that they're rewarded and recognised for when they do well. But we try to look at the employee package, so not because there's only so much you can base on rate of pay, because if you pay more, then ultimately you have to put your prices up, to cover that higher wage cost. So we try to look beyond just it being a core wage. We want to pay fairly, and we use Scottish Living Wage in some venues, London Living Wage in others. But it's actually looking at the reward and recognition, the social programme we have for our staff, even little things like bike to work scheme for all employees. So I think you try to look at this, I guess, the softer elements of the employee package to make it attractive, but also give people the opportunity to learn and train and develop and try to attract people into the hospitality industry, because it's really hard. It's even harder since COVID and the B word that we don't need to talk about right now, but it's been really hard over the last few years to attract and retain good staff because there's a lot of competition. But if you can entice somebody in, induct them well, train them well, give them a good environment and give them the opportunity to grow and either it's maybe, obviously I don't know exactly the set, but what opportunities for them to learn in their career in hospitality as a way to retain them as well.
Yeah, I can't underestimate the value of training for staff, and it's something that I've seen in another of Sandy's contracts, the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, and there's been a real shift in the team with a really focused training programme that looks at individual skills and individual development, and there's been a lot of product development that's come out of that too, and I think that has really helped retention at that particular site. But I would agree with Sandy that it's the package, and I think this morning, I don't know if you were at the first session here, BBA BDRC, when they talked about that whole employee package. Because as visitor attractions, cultural venues don't generally pay well anyway. So I think we really need to look at the bigger picture.
Something that might work, we haven't used it with our catering teams, but we have used it elsewhere and are increasingly using it, is annualised hours contracts. You do that already. Yeah, okay. It works though. Anyway. Good. Carry on. Let's both do that. But it does work because it gives a bit of a guarantee for those who aren't familiar with it, that you can guarantee that seasonal employment, which works good.
Any other questions? Yeah, lady here.
Hi, thank you. We are a small organisation, and we used to have a community partner who provided our cafe service for us, but that's recently finished and we're just bringing it back in-house. We've talked a lot today about different ways of bringing in revenue and dynamic pricing, and thinking about a brand new setup and what the opportunities might be. We're not of a size that we could work with a commercial partner. I have hired a commercial officer to work with me to help us kind of identify what to do next. My question is around that kind of affordability piece and trying to set up a menu that has some element of dynamic pricing in it. Do you need to do these kind of things in separate spaces? Do you have a high-end element and a kind of more affordable element, an on-the-go element, if you like? Do you have areas that you can do maybe self-service alongside then something that's much more service-driven? Are there kind of any tips that you can give us that might help us kind of think about how we can help everybody to be able to enjoy it, but also take advantage of some of those more premium offers that we've talked about for generating revenue?
Great question. I don't work with an awful lot of venues that do dynamic pricing, but I do with one or two. And the way they seem to manage it is time-led. So it's seasonal. So it's seasonal, and it's by, prices go up at the weekends, effectively. That's what happens. But I'm really interested in what you said about your premium and other offers. And I think it's just about creating balance in your menu. And if you've said that it's a small operation, then you're not going to have a huge menu in any case. I assume that you'll probably have quite a small kitchen, and there'll be limitations to your production. So I would just look for balance, and to pick out the times that you can focus on having a premium offer. So creating these kind of real luxury experiences. If it's a luxury afternoon tea where you have a private tour and a luxury tea, that you put your premium onto those items.
I think the other thing to do is not to get too clever. I think doing something really simple and well, and keeping that choice and the number of options down is something that I see in the wider industry. It's quite interesting to see places go, we do this wine, these snacks, that's it. And I think if you're sourcing interestingly and finding things that they can't find elsewhere, you can still make something really different and special. I think I'd be wary of trying to do too many things and trying to get too clever. I think we all know what, simple and assured looks like, and I think that's what I would do as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a huge amount to add to that, because obviously Sandra and Joe have answered very well. But I think the example I shared earlier of the V&A, so we moved from a table service restaurant into a counter service operation with the refurb in 2022. And so our spend per head has actually gone down, but we weren't focusing on how much the menu price was. We were actually thinking about how do we bring more people into the venue more regularly and create a destination for dining, so people actually come for a great cafe rather than coming for more of an experience. So, and as I shared, our spend per visitor overall has increased, which tells me that obviously something is working, and people are coming directly for the cafe. So I guess depending on what your setting is, if it's a paid for visit attraction that you work in, then that's not as easy to do, of course. But when you do have people in, I think you want to have an accessible, a good range on your menu. It's affordable and it's accessible, so people don't balk at the price of a cup of coffee or a scone, because those are things that people generally know how much they cost. But where you can premiumise, maybe something that's linked to an exhibition or a feature that is a treat as part of that day out, then that's maybe where you look at creating opportunities to capture a higher spend.
Any other questions at all?
Hello there. I hope this is going to be an okay question to ask. It's actually in relation to catering for venue hire, if that's okay. So basically, how would you best balance sort of menu choices and too many choices with actually communicating it to the customer? We've kind of flip-flopped between having a really simple menu to also having very complicated menus that are pages and pages and pages, which tends to be better for the customer in the long run, because it means that they have the choices that they want and that they're trying to communicate to us to give them. But it also means that I have to sit and explain a menu that is pages and pages long. And then when we give them a menu that doesn't have enough choice, we really struggle with that too, because then we get customers that come back and go, oh, well, we actually wanted bowl food and we wanted chili and we wanted this and it's not here, and can we have this, and is that okay, and can we have it with lamb instead of beef, and it gets really complicated. Any tips and advice, greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
I'll have a first go at that. I think the way that we would approach it again is, as you say, from an events perspective, there's lots of different options you can have. It might be a sit-down dinner, a canopy reception, bowl food. And I think you want to let people know that you can do all of those things. But trying to provide too much choice can be a little bit overwhelming for a customer. So the way that we would handle it normally is that we would have a sample menu for each of the different event types, and so that people can get a flavour of what we offer. We work seasonally with our event menus, so that menu changes 4 times a year. So but let's say we've got 3 or 4 menus, one for each of the different types of offers that we provide in that venue. It might be day conference, day meeting as well. But that's just a little flavour of what we offer, and then we invite people to come, or we speak to people. Again, it comes back to people again. So the initial hook is here's the menu, beautifully seasonally, well-sourced, nice ingredients. but talk to us about what you're looking for, and we'll tailor and make it bespoke to you. So I think you want to give a little bit of information to get people excited, but then you want to be able to have that interaction to shape what it is they're looking for on their event, based on, and you can have all those banks of menus ready to go, but in terms of what you give the customer initially, make it simple, straightforward, clear, would be my suggestion. Anything?
I think that they probably want your advice as well. They want to steer. I think quite often people are quite, maybe not nervous, but definitely, it's a significant investment, whether that's a corporate or a personal thing. And I think it's probably about your time or your team's time going, that might be a bit too fussy, or that sounds great. So I think I'm agreeing with Sandy. Start with something simple, but they're not going to be, for example, to be able to do all of that online. They're going to want to talk. So I think it's that human service thing.
Yeah, I think that your menus are your introduction. So, have a bank of menus that you send out to visitors, but it's always with the proviso that please talk to us, and we can advise you on what's seasonal, what would be best for your guest group.
I'm just thinking the other thing that works well there is testimonials or previous events, so they can see photographs, go, oh, yeah, that looks more informal, that's what I want, or oh, they really can do a dinner at that size, and an image can do that quite well, so that sort of thing as well.
Any final questions from anybody? One over here.
Hiya. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about storytelling through menus, in terms of, some people just want a basic ham and cheese sandwich, but people also want a menu item that's relevant to the collection or heritage for the venue that they're going to, both for venue hire but also your standard cafe operation as well.
Yes, this is something that I'm really, really passionate about, and I spend a lot of time looking at menus and saying, well, why don't you see where that's from, and why don't we say that this was made in-house? However, a note of caution is that it can then become too wordy, and I think one of the best ways of illustrating where your food comes from is by use of a supplier map or a simple list at the beginning of your menu that says, we source from X, Y, and Z. And storytelling is not just about where the food comes from, but if there's a dish that is perhaps associated with your venue or with your locality, or it might even be some chef's leek and potato soup that is his granny's recipe. So I think it all adds to the visitor experience.
I think something I would be careful of is being too literal. I think we've sometimes got into, and the best that with the best will in the world, and it can come internally as well. Someone will say, "Oh, I've thought of a great cocktail to match this exhibition," or "I want to make this artist into a sandwich or something," and that is fraught with difficulty, and I think is not the way to go. I'd beware of being too literal. So we might do something like English asparagus with English artists, but we don't try and push it too far. I think it's more the general feel of your organisation rather than trying to do colour matching and things like that, which can sometimes get a bit contrived.
You can tell we did try to make a sandwich out of one of the works of art. It was a creative session, but it didn't quite land well. I think just to follow on, and again, there's not much more I can add, I don't think, but storytelling has to be honest and has to be genuine and has to be authentic, because there's so many examples, and lots of caterers do it, and you see something and you think, is that really true? Is that really happening? And actually, it makes you feel like it's not a genuine offer that you're therefore getting. So if you're linking something to an exhibition, then and it's inspired by an exhibition, then you have to think about the process and tell the story behind that. So if it's a chef that's thought about the exhibition, has designed a dish that was appropriate to that time period or that region, then that's great. And you can tell the story simply through, maybe a little QR code that somebody can download, so it's not too much information on the menu, but make it simple, make it genuine, and make it authentic. And I think that's where it adds value.
Probably got time, I think, for one last question, if there's any more. No? I'll ask you one final question then again from each of you. What does success look like for you in a partnership between venue and caterer?
Well, I guess from my perspective, obviously success means both businesses are being successful. It's not one or the other, and I guess the word partnership as well is important because sometimes people view partnership still as that sort of client and caterer relationship, whereas we talk about partnership as both organisations working together to achieve a shared set of goals. So I think success looks like putting together a set of objectives, achieving those together, and respecting each other, trusting each other, and being honest with each other. And I think that's the way that we approach any of the partnerships we have.
Absolutely. It's about that trust and openness. And I think from my point of view, probably a successful partnership between a client and a caterer means they don't need a consultant anymore.
I think, yes, it is. It's those things about any partnership, at the risk of sounding like a sort of marriage guidance counsellor, it is trust and shared mutual respect and those things. I would also say clarity. I think there's a line, isn't there? What can be misunderstood will be misunderstood. And I think being really, really clear about who does what, which bits of budget are allowed for what, which spaces mean what, and being really quite pedantic at the beginning. Really thinking through what that means so that you don't have surprises, and what that cycle of review is and when you'll have those conversations. So I think clarity, trust, mutual respect, clarity, and a sense of humour, probably.
Thank you. Afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you for all of you for joining us today, and a thank you to our panel as well for answering all those questions.
Thanks for coming.
We're around for a short while as well, so anyone have anything you want to ask us one-to-one as well.